Hi, my name's Phillip Andrew and I'm the Executive Creative Director at Clemenger BBDO, and that's an advertising agency for those of you that don't know. And I have to say that when Rachel asked me to do this, I thought it was a pretty obvious choice because I've spent my life putting an argument into 30 seconds, so I figured 20 seconds wasn't going to be that much more difficult. I've waited for years for the chance to evangelise an obsession of mine, American classic wooden boats, so now you're going to have to sit and listen to it. But just to make it, kind of fit, I looked up the word imbibe in the dictionary, hoping to find a way that I could segue neatly to boats. And happily, I found that apart from sinking piss, imbibe means to take or receive into the mind as knowledge, to absorb or to soak up. So here we go, soak this up. Thanks very much. This is the bottom of a boat. It's built in such a way that in order to float it needs to soak up water until it's tight. To me it's a museum and a work of art. It's a century boat made in Manistee, Lake Michigan in 1958, the year that I was born. Only built to last 5 or 6 years, these boats survive today because of the families that made memories in them. Here's my very first classic boat, a 1958 Century Resorter. 2 months after I bought it, my life was to change forever. With 4 children to care for and an advertising agency to run in what little time I had to myself, I hid in the garage and embarked on what was to become a 2-year restoration of an old boat, but also a 2-year restoration of an old goat, me. What I love about imbibing in these boats is the richness of the stories in the wood. After weeks of stripping, 50 years of varnish off the hull of this wonderful bit of history emerged. It's a hull number stamped into the wood by hand. 58 is the year it was made, HD means resorter, and it's number 560. This is the completely stripped hull 9 months later. I remember reaching this milestone having scraped the boat clean because my youngest daughter Lily started telling whoever called me at home that Dad can't come to the phone because he was at church. From that point on, the garage became my church. Finishing this boat took me another 12 months and I had to learn how to apply stain and varnish by brush, but the biggest problem was the dust getting into the varnish, which ruined every entire coat. So in the end it took 16 coats of varnish to get it right, and I ended up varnishing, I have to say, in the nude to keep the dust down. And I got some odd looks from Steve and Trish, my neighbours, as I emerged from the garage in the nude, except for undies, a face mask and rubber gloves. It was my 50th birthday and I decided to buy myself another present. So in May I went to Lake Tahoe in Northern California and I bought a 1967 Century Arabian like this one. Century built just 11 of these stunning boats, as from 1965 onwards fiberglass started to rule the waves. I woke in the morning of my birthday on the shores of Lake Tahoe to hot coffee and the lake as smooth as glass, and I spent a wonderful morning with the owner of the boat. As we tied up I said, "Herb, I'll take her, but I have a question. I want to rename her and I've heard it's bad luck." And he said, "Phil, it's bad luck just owning a boat." Me and the kids named her Miss Tahoe. This boat was bought new in 1948 by a guy called Wilbur. As part of the deal he got the sales guy to organise to have his wife Dorothy's pet name, Dort, gold-leafed on the transom. When the boat turned up, Dort was spelt with a K, and Wilbur said, "Oh, fuck it, just leave it." When I got the Arabian home from Tahoe, I couldn't wait to show my kids, and you can see from this picture that the boat's got a large sort of padded area on the back, and Lily, my youngest daughter, excitedly climbed up and she said, "Hey, this is so cool, Dad." "Yeah, that's what the Americans call the pussy pad," I said. "Oh, the cats are really going to love it." And Elliot, my son, said, "It's not that kind of pussy, Lily." The following year we went back to Tahoe for the boat show and we got talking to a guy named Steve Lapkin. His family had had one of my boats and he'd asked if there was a name on the back when I'd bought it. I remembered seeing a faded name, Ruth L. Tears welled up in his eyes and he said, "Ruthie L. That's my mother's name. You have the Lapkin family boat." And for the rest of the boat show, Steve couldn't do enough for us. He was shooting a documentary of the boat show from this specially equipped camera boat. He couldn't wait to show me the boat and he said, "Phil, there she is. Do you know what she is? She's a Protector. She's made in Auckland, New Zealand. The only Kiwi boat on Tahoe." Pretty neat, huh? Elliot and I were featured in the documentary talking about the way these boats connected people that day. And then I received a letter when we got home. And it was from Steve saying that he'd been cleaning out his family's things and he'd found a set of keys for Ruthie L. "Phil, try these keys in your Arabian and then we'll really see if we share the same boat." The keys started Miss Arabian. Back in 2009 I was searching the net for the wooden boats that I love, and on it I found a boat called a Century Palomino with the craziest vinyl cowhide interior. The boat became my screensaver till predictably one day I emailed the owner, Mr. F. Todd Warner. We emailed back and forth for a while, but in the end Todd wanted too much for the boat, so I passed on it. I'd left it as my screensaver just so I could start each day. Pretty good, you know. Then in mid-2010 I saw on the Woody Boater blog that F. Todd Warner had gone under and that all of his boats, the largest collection in the world, were going to auction. A no reserve auction, and the Palomino was in that auction. Being the boat slut that I am, it didn't take long for me to contact the guys from Antique Boat Centre in Cincinnati, Herb and Lou. And I asked if they'd go to the Warner auction and bid on my behalf for the boat. And when the day of the auction arrived, I watched the auction from home via a live stream, and I saw Herb and Lou win the boat for me. The next day, Woody Boater posted a story on how we'd won the boat. It was such an exciting day, and I had comments and compliments from right across the world. I was now the owner of the most original and rare 1956 Palomino on the planet. I'd won the boat for less than half what Todd had wanted for it. All I had to do now was get her home. The boat arrived in Wellington on a May Saturday morning. Elliot and I towed her home, and I spent the rest of the day exploring the Palomino. The boat was like a timepiece. In the hatch at the back, I found the original purchase receipt from Kin Motors Marine in Wisconsin, and even the original tin of Shearpins. The kids and I named her Sparkle Horse. That night I was flicking through an old 1994 issue of a classic boat magazine, and I found another picture of a Palomino with the same cowhide interior. I wondered where that boat was today and if it had survived the passage of time like my one. On closer inspection I noticed that the cowhide pattern was quite similar, and then I noticed the registration number. I was actually looking at my boat back in 1994. So I posted this discovery on Woody Boater. A few weeks later I was contacted by Mrs. Barbara Johnson. Barbara was Mike Johnson's wife, the owner of the boat in the picture, and Mike had passed away, and she had often wondered what had happened to the boat that they had had so much fun in. We stay in touch now, and the connections keep happening. Oddly enough, as you'll see there, Mike has a brother named Phillip Andrew Johnson. To imbibe is to soak up or to receive into the mind as knowledge. These boats do that for me. They soak up memories into their mahogany timbers, and they pay it forward in the form of stories and human connections. And I don't think we own these boats, more just look after them for the next generation. They really are food for our soul. Here's a 1955 Arabian. It's now my screensaver.